I think if I like something, I'm not a unique person. Someone else will like it. You know, I believe that. Sometimes I've read a poem that was written by somebody from, like, you know, from Australia, and there was no way that person could have known that I felt that. And that person expresses that emotion so well for me. And it's great. I read the poem and I agree. I say yes, yes. It's like I'm listening to somebody I know. Confirms something that I feel. Right. This book, Wind at Dawn, sizokwenza some poems from this, but also there are poems that are not prescribed that I've chosen that I quite like, and I'm quite curious about our local writers. I'm not choosing local writers or the poetry that I'm going to do that is my poetry in order to compare. I'm not planning to do that. I'm just giving you both ways. Let's have a taste of both the overseas poetry and local poetry. It's quite fascinating, also the styles that we use. I think you're going to find that in my poetry, I don't follow the serious rules here. I don't know if that's a weakness or what, but my poetry is influenced by traditional praise poetry. And that poetry is sometimes composed on the spot, and the person is influenced by something and they stand up and compose a poem. Sometimes there's a situation where a person who has done something for that particular community is introduced. They've done a big party for this person, and somebody just out of emotion stands up and recites this big poem, and everyone is surprised and pleased by the fact that it's so spontaneous. You know, and people start ululating and clapping hands, and the singing goes on, or they compose a song on the spot. That's another thing that you find in our communities. So that's where my poetry comes from. It's very influenced by that. Before I get into this, I want to say that coming from a childhood of being a readaholic, just reading books, prescribed works and out of school work, everything that had words in it, I read it. I find that there's a poet here who's included here. We all did it. Wordsworth. I think it's such a nice name for a man who writes, who loves words. Wordsworth. Yeah, and this particular poem that I've got here that I'm going to do for you, it's called In the Company of Words. I find that definitely I like reading, and I like writing, and I like pronouncing words and playing around with them. I can taste them. I like them. Okay, I'm just going to go through this. It is truly wonderful, marvelous, and comforting to know that I have eyes to read, hands that can write, and an enormous love for words. I'm lucky to be able to read, to be able to write, and I'm blessed to be speaking a few extremely beautiful languages, for I love words, languages of spring. When I'm happy, words define my happiness. When I'm down and confused, words turn into clay. They allow me to mold and remold my muddled up thoughts, till I find inner peace in my soul, and sincerest thanks fills my heart, for I love words, languages of spring. Had I to choose between weeping and reading, I'd most definitely choose reading, a good book. For I have proof, for aches and tensions, it works. Countless times I've turned my back on pain and found friends in characters from far-off lands. Countless times I've defied anger and caressed my nerves with a good comic book. Countless nights I have triumphed over insomnia and had a heart-to-heart talk with my pen and paper. I have come to my desk in the dead of the night. I sit without a clue as to what I wish to write about. But then, before I know it, words of all types and sizes come rushing onto my fingertips. I welcome them, every single one of them. I feel my whole body smile as I welcome them like the good old friends that they are. When they start dancing in large circles around me, throwing teasing, wordy shadows on my walls, I am convinced that I was not born to be bored. For how indeed can boredom even begin to penetrate my timeless word circle? I'm convinced. I am so content in the company of words. Thank you. Thank you. Before we get into this, I also have found a poem here that's going to happen quite soon in our program. I've chosen poems really that I like, poems that I find are very picturesque, that are very picture drawing for me. And some of them are prescribed works, some of them are not. But this particular one called The Sudden Storm reminded me of a poem that I wrote a few years ago. This poem also talks about rain. Also, I find it's just countless things that people can come up with that have to do with what comes into their minds. Some people just want to stay in bed and drink hot soup when it's raining. Some people wish for that. They miss the enjoyment. What do you think? Do you think they miss something if they don't get into the rain out there or even watch the rain?
No, they're gaining something in fact.
They're gaining something. Okay, they're gaining soup. That's wonderful. Yeah. Okay, before we get into this particular poem, just I'm going to give you a taste, for instance, of what goes on through my mind when it's raining. And my poem is called Sometimes When It Rains. It's a poem that was written when I was far away from home. And I find that when you're away from South Africa, your mind is continuously in South Africa. Even though your body is far away, it's very interesting. I was surprised when I read it after writing it that, God, everything is like at home mostly, you know. And I was on tour overseas, and one of our actors was very sick, and we couldn't do the show. We had to cancel. And so everybody went out for supper in some restaurant, and I stayed in, and I thought I'm going to be very lonely tonight. I was sitting there staring at the rain outside, and came the poem. I was in the company of words again. Yeah, sometimes when it rains, I smile to myself, and I think of times when as a child, I would sit and wonder why people needed clothes. Sometimes when it rains, I think of times when I used to run into the rain playing Ndeng Ndeng Dem Lanjana, Ndeng Ndeng Dem Lanjana. When we like grow up, I'll grow up tomorrow. When we like grow up, I'll grow up tomorrow. Sometimes when it rains, I think of times when I used to watch goats running so fast from the rain while sheep seem to enjoy it. Sometimes when it rains, I think of times when we had to undress, carry the small bundles of uniforms and books on our heads, and cross the river after school. Sometimes when it rains, I think of times when it rained for hours and filled our drum so we didn't have to fetch water from the river for a day or two. Sometimes when it rains for many hours without break, I think of people who have nothing to eat, nowhere to sleep, and no friends to hold them. Sometimes when it rains for many days without break, I think of mothers who give birth in squatter camps under plastic shelters at the mercy of cold and angry winds. Sometimes when it rains so hard hail joins in as if to add a musical beat, I think of life prisoners in all the jails of the world, and I wonder if they still love to see the rainbow at the end of the rain. Sometimes when it rains, with hailstones biting the grass, I can't help thinking how they look like teeth. Many teeth of smiling friends. Then I wish that everyone else had something to smile about. Don't you wish? Thank you. Those are the things that come to my mind when it's raining.
What is it that makes people think about the old times, especially when it's raining?
They think about things that happened long ago. I think maybe the mind starts relaxing a bit, and things keep coming at you. These memories, they just keep coming back. And sometimes you don't even fish for them, you don't even look for them. You know, they just come. Or you meet somebody who reminds you of something. At least that's what I think. Okay, let's move on to this one, a sudden storm. See what this person has to say about a sudden storm. Okay. The wind howls, the trees sway, the loose housetop sheets clatter and clang, the open window shuts with a bang, and the sky makes night of day. Helter-skelter, the parents run, pressed with 1,000 minor cares. Hey, you there! Pack the housewares! And where on earth is my son? Home skip the little children. Where have you been, you naughty boy? The child can feel nothing but joy, for he loves the approach of rain. parents are so worried. The boy is so happy. The streets clear. The houses fill. The noise gathers as children shout, and naught that can move is still. A bright flash, a lighted plane, then from the once blue heavens, accompanied by the noise that deafens, steadily pours down the rain. Takes over everything with that sound. Takes over everything. That's very dramatically written there. That's very dramatically written, I think. Yeah. I find these conflicting emotions quite fascinating, because as we were saying, not everybody has the same feeling about what's happening, about the rain. Like, I'm scared of lightning, to tell you the truth. I don't like lightning. If there was just rain and thunder and anything else, but not lightning, I don't like that part. And yeah? No, I don't know. I'm just scared of it. I don't know. It feels like it can hit me in the face or what. I don't know. I can't. And yet I know people who, when the flash of lightning comes first before the big thunderclap, and people immediately after the flash of the lightning, they count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then it starts. Some people do that, and I wouldn't dare. I'm hiding my face already. Yeah, let's move on to the next poem. It's like moving poems here. We have The Express, page 92. This is The Express. Let's get into this. I find we imitate things. We imitate sounds, natural sounds that happen in nature. For instance, the bird noises, we put words into them. For instance, sounds that are made, even if it's made by a boiling kettle of water, we make sounds to that in the way that people would say, Pesgomkon. And that's a sound that we're quite familiar with. And another thing, with the train, people have got all kinds of rhythms that they have. Let's try a rhythm that you know, that reminds you of a train. Whoa, let's try and see how much rhythm I've got now. Let's go. A bit softly, eh? Oh, after the first powerful plain manifesto, the black statement of pistons, without more fuss, but gliding like a queen, she leaves the station. Without bowing, with restrained unconcern, she passes the houses which humbly crowd outside, the gas works, and at last the heavy page of death, printed by gravestones in the cemetery. Beyond the town, there lies the open country, where, gathering speed, she acquires mystery, the luminous self-possession of ships on ocean. It is now she begins to sing, at first quite low, and then loud, and at last with a jazzy madness. Woo, we're happening here, aren't we? Okay, let's try it again. Let's try it again without this. This is nice. Yeah? Let's try it again. It's great. What's that happening? We'll try. Okay, after the first powerful plain manifesto, the black statement of pistons, without more fuss, but gliding like a queen, she leaves the station. Without bowing and with restrained unconcern, she passes the houses which humbly crowd outside, the gas works, and at last the heavy page of death, printed by gravestones in the cemetery. Beyond the town, there lies the open country, where, gathering speed, she acquires mystery, the luminous self-possession of ships on ocean. It is now she begins to sing, at first quite low, and then loud, and at last with a jazzy madness. The song of her whistle, screaming at curves of deafening tunnels, breaks, innumerable bolts, and always light, aerial underneath goes the elate meter of her wheels. Steaming through metal landscape on her lines, she plunges new eras of wild happiness, where speed throws up strange shapes, broad curves and parallels clean like the steel of guns. At last, further than Edinburgh or Rome, Before the crest of the world she reaches night, where only a low streamline brightness of phosphorus on the tossing hills is white. Ah, like a comet, through flame she moves entranced, wrapped in her music, no bird's song, no bow breaking with honey bars shall ever equal. She's got her own kind of music. That's the queen. That's the express train. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. We're moving here. We love trains, don't we? Here's Oswald Mtshali. Eh? Some of us love trains. That is the truth. Yes.
In this poem, the train has been personified. So what can you call this type of poem?
It's been personified. I think it's the choice of this writer to personify the poem, but also I think it's the magic that is given by this person. It's very imaginative for him to take that magic and paint it, and it's not only personified. He calls it a queen. You know, yeah. I think it's very. I think it's imaginative, the way that he puts it. I don't know what you call this type of poem. If there's a specific word that you can use for it, what is it called?
Why is it important to use figures of speech?
Why is it important? I don't think that is a must. It's lovely when you can use them and they work, but it's not a must. But also, you find that certain figures of speech, they just hit on the point without you having to explain so much. You know, they're just few words, and because we know them, maybe it could be 3-4 words, and they point right on the head what you want to say. So it is important in that sense. But as I'm saying, it's not demanded of the writer to do that.
Out of all these poems that we have to study, none of them is written by a local African writer.
By a local writer. Yeah. Or somebody who writes about something that you can imagine, of names that you have seen, like this other poem, The Express, that I've just read, talks about Edinburgh in Scotland or about Rome in Italy. You can't imagine what Rome is like, really, if you've never been. That's quite interesting. Let's read this and see how we react to. I'd like to know how you react to this one by Oswald Mtshali. Okay. This is another thing that he does about night. Now that the question you were asking about, it's like there's a hand that unveils the night with the daybreak. The poem is called The Song of Sunrise. It's lovely what he does anyway. The thought of daybreak snips the shroud of the night from the sky, and the morning peeps through the blankets like a baby rising from its cot to listen to the peal of the bell. Arise, arise, all workers, go to work, you must go. Buses rumble, trains rattle, taxis hoot. I shuffle in the queue with feet that patter on the station platform and stumble into the coach that squeezes me like a lemon of all the juices of my life. As the train is moving. It's terrible what is happening to him. After all that waking up quickly and getting dressed and get something to drink quickly and run to the train station, then waiting into the queue. And there you go, shuffling and then pushed inside because there are so many people wanting to come inside. And then they squeeze you. Even in the taxis as well. I mean, have you seen how you sit there? At the shift, mama. No shift. That's right, just standing all the way to town in the bus as well.
But do you think a person as thin as myself can get squeezed there?
Yeah, more. They can squeeze even more. Yeah? So you can visualize Orlando Station here. You can visualize any other station, Mbuyiseni Mhlophe or someplace. Etan Swat, yeah. Etan Swat. Sometimes don't even feel if you've lost something because there are so many. You don't feel like you're not carrying something that you were carrying earlier on. I think this is something that I find fascinating about local writers then that talk about something that we know about. And you remember it.
I want to know what these juices of life
These juices of life. Woo! Maybe it's the anticipation of getting to work. Maybe he had an important appointment. It's like all of that is squeezed out in the pain that he feels so many people squeezing him. He's quite figurative as well in the way that he puts it. But also you can imagine those juices of life is the joy of whatever he was looking forward to. It's like all squeezed out. How can you be pleased when you're in such a situation about anything? You're just wishing you could drive the train yourself. Let it move faster so you can get out of that train, you know, to get to the station where you want to go to. Let's try the next one. The next one is the title of this book, in fact, The Wind at Dawn. Have you been doing this one? Yes. Okay. I'm curious as well about this poem because we'll see how you feel about it anyway. Let's talk about it. Let me just read it quickly, and then I like the way that the wind, again, is that question that was asked about personifying something. The wind is like moving in these giant steps and doing things, no matter how quietly, but it's just doing things. You know, you can feel the hands and the legs moving of the wind. There is a wind that very softly passes over the earth before the break of day, rustling the reeds and forest leaves and grasses, rippling the waters that so tranquil lay over the plains and swiftly through the hollows, whispering lowly of the coming morn. It passes with a trembling touch, then follows the solemn silence that precedes the dawn. It is a wind that coldly comes, and sighing, for it has met and taken in its flight the breath of those the sunset had left dying, and all the souls that had been freed at night. It is a wind that wakes a world all sleeping, the sighing of a night that fades away, and with a night's dark secrets in its keeping, passes beyond and heralds in the day. After all doing all those things and taking the breath of the people that are dying, rustling the trees, disturbing the water that so quietly sleeps at night, it heralds in the day. Welcome, day. It's your turn. Yes. Thank you. Okay, before we do another prescribed work, that is the Paton, that is also something, I want to just give you a certain sense of a writer that I admire a lot, Chris van Wyk. Chris van Wyk is a South African writer, and you find that, for me, at least, I miss poetry. I miss love poetry as well sometimes. Sometimes I think this is lovely stuff. You just look at the way that he talks about this person. I don't know if you can imagine the face of this woman he writes for. You know, it's called The Portrait. It's written for Kathy, Chris van Wyk. It's page 85. Sometimes you run out of words to say what you want to say. Or if somebody did something for you, whether it's your teacher or whatever, and you want to stand in front of them and say, thank you, you did this and this, I feel this way, and the words don't come. If I could turn my gray matter into a palette of pastel shades, change my pen into a brush and my page into canvas, I'd paint your portrait, create a new old master. Because you have a smile that is luminous in a room of dark faces, and a laugh that's boisterous as a binge, and a heart that's so big I can splash it all over the canvas, crazy as Van Gogh until the easel topples. Yes, that is what I'd do. Not write you into a poem, because I'd probably hide half of you in that part of me that's speechless or selfish. Concrete poetry, too, cannot express your beauty, and I can't picture myself using O's for your eyes, when O's are all so vacant. That's love poetry. That's beautiful stuff. Van Gogh, by the way, you've heard of Van Gogh. He was quite a well-known artist from Europe. I don't know from which country. Germany? Holland. He was from Holland. That's right, Van Gogh. He did lovely, very colorful paintings and things like that. And he says he wants to go crazy like Van Gogh until the easel topples. He's going to be splashing so fast, showing this love. Yeah? I think that's fascinating poetry. Let's do, that's page 64, the Python. This is a short little one there, the Python. I imagine something quite scary Immediately you say the python, I look and think, where's the fear? That's what I'm looking for immediately. Yeah? You say snake, I'm ready to run. Let's hear what this man has to say about the snake. This is Shepistone Sekeso. That's right. Majestically you slide, slowly searching for your next meal. The victim you swallow whole. Imagine a long woman like me swallowed whole. Woo! This python is bad news. Beauty lies in the pattern of your skin and in your slow sliding. Why did God make you a serpent? You should have been Lord of lizards. You are so majestic. You're supposed to be a lord. Not so scary. Not slithering like that. I think that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
How do you make a poem attractive to the reader?
I'm going to talk for myself to start with. When I write something, I pour out whatever feeling I have, whether it's a serious emotion there or some joy or fear or whatever I want to write about. And then after I read it out loud and hear myself reading that poem, I hope that someone else can feel what I felt. I want to share with somebody what I felt. I don't think it's something that I want to attract you in the way that an advertiser would do. You know, this is a big sale and they say it's $9.99. They could have just said 10 rands. You know, instead they use $9.99. So it's particularly to attract people, but when you are a writer, I think, at least speaking for myself, you write to express your emotions and hope that someone else will feel what you felt. I think if I like something, I'm not a unique person, someone else will like it. You know, I believe that. Sometimes I've read a poem that was written by somebody from, from Australia, and there was no way that person could have known that I felt that. And that person expresses that emotion so well for me. And it's great. I read the poem and I agree. I say yes, yes. It's like I'm listening to somebody I know. Confirms something that I feel. Let's move on to this one. This is William Blake, writing about the schoolboy. I love to rise in a summer morn when the birds sing on every tree. The distant huntsman winds his horn, and the skylark sings with me. Oh, what sweet company. But to go to school on a summer morn, oh, it drives all joy away. After a cruel eye outworn, the little ones spend the day in sighing and dismay. Ah, then at times I drooping sit and spend many an anxious hour. Nor in my book can I take delight, nor sit in learning's bower, worn through with the dreary shower. How can the bird that is born for joy sit in a cage and sing? How can a child, when fears annoy, but droop his tender wing and forget his youthful spring? Oh, father and mother, if buds are nipped and blossoms blown away, and if the tender plants are stripped of their joy in the springing day by sorrow and care's dismay, how shall the summer arise in joy, or the summer fruits appear? Or how shall we gather what griefs destroy, or bless the mellowing year when the blasts of winter appear? He definitely doesn't want to go to school when it's such a beautiful day. Wasted, he's going to be sitting indoors and reading those books. I think I want to talk about the rhythm here, in the way that he closes, the way that he closes his lines. It's like he manipulates his lines. He sat there and manipulated his lines. Do you see that? Let's look at the second paragraph, for instance, of this poem. This is page 32. The second paragraph. But to go to school in a summer morn, oh, it drives all joy away, under a cruel eye outworn, and the little ones spend the day in sighing and dismay.
I think it's after the summer holidays.
Does the poem rhyme?
It does. It does quite. He goes out of his way, in fact, to do that. He goes out of his way, in fact, to do that. Then at times I drooping sit. He doesn't say I sit drooping or whatever. And spend many an anxious hour. Nor in my book can I take delight. nor sit in learning's bower, worn through with a dreary shower. How can the bird that is born for joy sit in a cage and sing? How can a child, when fears annoy, but droop his tender wing and forget his youthful spring? He wants to jump. He wants to be happy. He's got this youthful spring. How many times have you heard parents complaining at two? You know, the child wants to touch that and then put it down and then, you know, Mama, what is this for? You know, asking all these questions, there's too much energy in your body. And you're told to sit down and to keep quiet. The boy at the window. This is another poem. Let's just read it and go through it. Seeing the snowman standing all alone in dusk and cold is more than he can bear. The small boy weeps to hear the wind prepare a night of gnashing and enormous moan. His tearful sight can hardly reach to where the pale-faced figure with bitumen eyes returns him such a God-forsaken stare as outcast Adam gave to paradise. The man of snow is none the less content, having no wish to go inside and die. Still, he is moved to see the youngster cry. Though frozen water is his element, he melts enough to drop from one soft eye a trickle of the purest rain, a tear. For the child at the bright pane surrounded by such warmth, such light, such love, and so much fear. Even the snowman can cry when he sees this boy crying for him. You know, isn't that lovely? You can imagine just melting enough to have a tear running down. Yeah. A lot of children who live in countries where there's a lot of snow will very easily identify with this because they run out and make snowmen. And that's the first thing they want to do when it's snowing outside. And they even take a scarf and they put it around the neck of the snowman and rush and get somebody's hat and put it on top of the head. And it becomes like this person standing there, very white indeed. Yeah, but I think we can identify with this. Even though we haven't been in a country with the snow and things, we can identify with it. It's quite simply written as well. Yeah. But do you hear what he's saying about the fear? Even though this boy is loved, even though this boy is warm inside, and the snowman doesn't wish to go inside and die because it's going to melt inside if he goes in. You see? Yeah. But he feels a certain kind of fear in that boy. That's very fascinating. I think he's so safe and everything. You'd assume everything is fine in there. And then let's get to the hermit. Somebody said they love the hermit. Page 11. All right. Hello.
When you read a poem, how do you know whether here you must be soft or loud?
Okay. What do? I read the poem first just to get the meaning. Sometimes you read a poem and you don't get the meaning immediately because of just the structure of the poem itself. And then you read it a few times. And then one of the things that I love about poetry is that I can listen to my own voice. Poetry stays more in your mind if you can hear your voice. You don't have to perform in front of people or anything, just for yourself. It's lovely that way when you hear yourself reading it. And then when somebody talk about sigh, nobody sighs like that. You see, you listen to those words and catch the meaning of that, you know. And then when somebody talks of pita, 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 you know what that means. And then, gush, 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 gush. It's those steps.
But what if there are no sounds like that?
If there are no sounds like that, there's still more meaning. Let's try this one. Let's try this one and illustrate that. Let me just read the hermit. There's no sense of direction here about what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do. But once you've read it a few times, you get the picture of what this man is like. You don't know what the hell he's terrified about. Why in the world has he locked himself in? Whoever said they wanted to kill him? Hey, let's hear what the hermit has to say. This is Alan Paton. I have barred the doors of the place where I bide. I am old and afraid of the world outside. How the poor souls cry in the cold and the rain. I have blocked my ears. They shall call me in vain. If I peer through the cracks, hardly daring draw breath, they are waiting there still, patient as death. The maimed and the sick, the tortured of souls, arms outstretched. as if I could help them be whole. No shaft of sun my hiding shall find. Go tell them outside, I am deaf, I am blind. Who will drive them away? Who will ease my dread? Who will shout to the fools, he is dead, he is dead. Sometimes they knock at the place where I hide. I am old and afraid of the world outside. Do they think, do they dream I will open the door, let the world in, and no peace no more? Suka, I'm not opening this door.
I like this poem because it's what happens at home. When I'm angry, I share my bedroom with my sister, so I lock the door so that anyone cannot get into my bedroom. Then they all just call me. I won't open the door, but I just close my eyes, my ears, and I tell myself I'm dead now.
Yeah. But it's fascinating what the different things, what could have made this person move into a little, you can imagine even a little shack. Maybe it's not even all that strong. If people wanted really to open it, they could push down the door and open and reach him. Hello.
Well, I want to know what a hermit is.
What's the hermit? Okay. Hello. Yes, answer her. That's good. Yeah, that's good. Answer her.
A hermit is gone from the world.
From the world. Yes.
How I feel is this person is afraid to help those people.
The people that are calling outside, the maimed and the sick, the tortured of souls, arms outstretched as if I could help them be whole. What is he talking about? Do we assume that he could be a doctor maybe? I don't think so. Do we feel that?
I think this poem applies to the present situation. It applies to a white man who is afraid of being with a black man.
Even if it's not across the color line, let's say, even if it's just a white person scared of other white people, it's just, after a while of keeping yourself closed like that, you start making imagination, you're making up stories that those people are stretching their arms. If your eyes are closed and your ears are blocked, you haven't got a clue what's going on out there. You're making up all these stories that they all want to do this to you, they all want to do this to you, and maybe they will just open the door and say, hello, you want some tea, and give you some tea and leave you alone. Maybe they were just offering some tea. They didn't plan to mess up your peaceful shack. Yeah?
I want to know what is the actual interpretation of this poem.
These are our different interpretations of what we feel about the poem. We won't know what the author had in mind. Who did he see? Who inspired this? Because he's not here with us. But we can only interpret. The poem is on its own. We are doing all we're doing to it. We could be lying too. Couldn't be a shack, it could be a big mansion in Lower Houghton.
How did Alan Paton know about a hermit?
Maybe he was a hermit himself.
That's great. Or somebody came and told a little story about it. You know, somebody can come and say, you know what happened today in the bus? This and this and this and happened, and then can inspire you to write a poem or a little story and flesh it out. You know, put all kinds of things and give that person a name and dress them up. You know, there are people who discuss the heaviest politics in shebeens while they're just downing it. You know, what the government should do, and this apartheid, and they're just downing it, and they're discussing politics, why? I think we're going to have to move on, though. We can't dwell on this poem. Throwing a Tree, page 14, 1-4. Listen to the word about the executioners. Immediately you can see the reasoning of the writer, how he looks at people who cut trees. It's quite interesting there. Okay. The two executioners stalk along over the knolls, bearing two axes with heavy heads shining and wide, and a long limp two-headed saw-toothed for cutting great bowls, and so they approach the proud tree that bears the death mark on its side. Jackets doffed, they swing axes and chop away just above the ground, and the chips fly about and lie white on the moss and fallen leaves, till a broad, deep gash in the bark is hewn all way round. And one of them tries to hook upward a rope, which at last he achieves. the saw then begins, till the top of the tree of the tall giant shivers. The shivers are seen to grow greater each cut than before. They edge out the saw, tug the rope, but the tree only quivers. And kneeling and sawing again, they step back to try pulling once more. Then, lastly, the living mast sways, further sways. With a shout, Job and Ike rush aside. Reach the end of its long staying powers, the tree crashes downwards. It shakes all its neighbors throughout, and 200 years steady growth has been ended in less than 2 hours. Isn't that a sad death? Yeah. This person really feels for this tree. He just can feel all the emotion that goes on in that tree. That's amazing. Let's move on to the way we see death now. One of the things that I want to talk about this Death Be Not Proud poem is the way that I like this person talking, feeling a certain kind of triumph over death. You know, all of us are like worried about death, and you make sure you don't get knocked over by a car, you make sure you don't drink anything that could be poisonous, and we always find ourselves avoiding death. And this person says, no, you're not so big. You know, hold it right there. You know. Can somebody read me this one? Okay. How's this one? Yes.
That be not proud, thought some have called thee, might and dreadful, for thou art not so. For those whom thou thinkst thou dost overthrow, die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. From rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be, much pleasure, then from thee much more must flow. And soon as our best men with thee do go, rest for their bones and souls deliver. Those slaves to fate, chance kings and disparate men, and those with poisons, war and sickness dwell, and poppy or chance can make us sleep as well, and better than they stroked, while swellest though then. One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death thou shalt die.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you see this, the way that it's tying the tongue? These thous and thou'st and thine and thust. It's I find that it's a lot of work. Do you get the meaning of what this person is saying? After a while, you've gotten the meaning.
We shouldn't be scared of death, and anyway, it's the beginning of eternal life.
Okay, you lived eternally afterwards. Okay, let's look at the language that is used. For instance, it's like death is standing in front of this person, and this person is like speaking to death. You know, it's like a death again is personified in a way, even though they don't say if death is a man or a woman. Doesn't matter, but it's personified. And it says, "Death be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. Kumbule, you are not so dreadful. For those whom thou thinkest thou dost overthrow, die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. From rest and sleep, from rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be, much pleasure, then from thee much more must flow." Okay, the rest and sleep, they are pictures of you. When I'm sleeping, it's like, you know, they say, "Istombe sokufa," you know. Also, and soonest our best men with thee do go, yes, bahamba nawe, rest of their bones and souls delivery. Thou art slave to fate, you are a slave to fate, chance, kings and desperate men. Maybe men who commit suicide? Yeah, death is used all the way. And dust with poison, war and sickness dwell. Again, it's all those things. And poppy or charms can make us sleep as well. You're not the only one who can make us sleep. And better than thy stroke. Why swellest thou then? Why do you swell like this, death? One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die. Kufa uzakufa. One of the things I find is that sometimes I want to write a poem, and I can't put it in English. It refuses to be written in English. And I find that I could praise this person or put this emotion in a particular language. And this poem was written in 1985. There was a concert at the Market Theatre, Tembi singing Miriam Makeba's songs, and I presented a poem that I wrote for her. And it was a praise poem for Miriam Makeba. It's called Umlonjikazi Makeba. This poem, yeah? Umlonjikazi. Umlonji is a person with a lovely voice. Yes, umlonjikazi. That's umlonjikazi. Ifikile imini bikade celwa. Kufike imini yembongi. Imini enkulu ekade siyilindele. Imini yokubongwa kwentombi kaMakeba ebekufanele ba imi apha nathi namhlanje yona ngenqu kuba ingumafungwa shekhaya apha. Ndithetha mna umlonjikazi ongena kuthelekiswa. Intombi apha etyityimba bagodolo umafika izolo kwezomculo. Ithi yakulikhupha lentyeneneza la elizwi itsho ngoncuthu umazangwa olubatshixa imilomo nondaba. Uthe sathe gqi ngobuso kwelasemzini. Abaninzi baphathwa ngumona, agxusha amarhamncomesho alihlaza. Akhiqiza amagwebe wenkunzana ziphethwe ngumbendeni. Abanye babuza nabodwa wethu, kubani nalofika ngokungaka kona kuzethemba. Etsho ngoba umnyama ngathi imbize kudala yalitya lezini. Yancumela eqaleni intombi kaMakeba. Yasondela bayibukisisa nalo milebe yayo mihle ethi ndiphuze. Ithi yakuvula owayumlomo tyhini kwevakala yabathela thuphe kwezasekhaya yatsho abalibala. Kwabangasa bacela impinda, kwabangasa bacela impinda, kwabangasa bacela impinda, kwabangasa bacela impinda. Thank you. How would I put that in English? How would I put that in English? I wouldn't be able to do that. Eh? Very polite. Okay.